Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
Dragon Queen by TurboDragonQueen. Monkey D. Luffy, or Luffy, is a 12-year-old half-dragon runaway. Watch as she sets sail 5 years early to become the Queen of Pirates. She just has to make sure her elder brothers don't catch her first and drag her back home. What could possibly go wrong? Bigger crew, bigger dreams, bigger family. Big shout out to all the warlords of this channel. You know who you are. Want to stand among legends? Join the channel membership and show your support. Adios.
2-year-old Monkey D. Luffy or Luffy watched as the island grew smaller from her vision. She knew it'd be a while before she saw it again. Especially its inhabitants, namely Maki no Ne, Dayton and her bandits, the mayor and everyone else who lives on the island. Though she did wonder how they'd react when they found out that she was no longer on the island. But as the island vanished from sight, she sighed. Life was going to be very difficult, especially for someone her age. Adults weren't about to listen to a 12-year-old runaway girl, even if said 12-year-old could kick their butts from here to the Grand Line and back. But she was going to be a pirate. She was going to be the first queen of the pirates. She'd find the one piece that her uncle had left. Sorry everyone, she thought, but I'm setting sail early. I refuse to have my freedom taken away from me. Her thoughts were interrupted when the boat she had borrowed tipped suddenly. Looking over the side, the 12-year-old was surprised to see a huge whirlpool. That is one big whirlpool, it'll easily sink the boat. She laughed. Not that it was a big problem, as she was the only one who had eaten a devil fruit that could still swim. It probably helped that she wasn't exactly fully human, but half-dragon. The only half-dragon in the world. Too bad I can't fly very well yet. Oh well, quickly. Just before her boat was claimed, she jumped into the empty barrel next to her. The sound of the waves outside lulled her to sleep. I just hope that Ace ni, Sabo ni and La ni don't find me before I become queen. Marco the Phoenix watched in slight amusement as his longtime friend Portgas Diaz stormed through the Moby, spitting mad. Of course it wasn't entirely a good thing since the said man had eaten the flame fruit. As a result, the normally narcoleptic division leader was spitting fire in various directing. So now various crew members were running around trying not to get burned, the fuming fire user. Marco sighed as he remembered why Ace was so mad. Flashback: Ace had been talking with Marco when they heard Oyaji call out. Oi, Ace, someone is asking for you on this line. He won't say anything till you get your ass over here. Startled, Ace raced over to Oyaji, followed by Marco. Taking the Den Mushi, being watched by his captain and many fellow division commanders, he said, "Hello?" Luffy's run away from home. Ace was sure he lost an ear, due to his brothers yelling. Everyone around him clearly heard. Then what Sabo said sunk in. What the hell do you mean she's run away? Ace roared, causing many around him to jump when flames started to pour from his body in anger. How the hell should I know? I just got a call from Makino a little bit ago. I was told that she had stolen a boat and left the island. Why did no one stop her? Does Law know? No one noticed she was missing till this morning. Makino wasn't able to contact Law, so she called me, Sabo screamed. On the other end of the line, you could hear people screaming and running around about, no doubt Sabo's crew, panicking that their captain was angry. It had to be the end of the world. Gentleman Sabo, of the Top Hat Pirates, was known for his polite manners in any given situation, always kept his cool, and very deadly with a pipe. That's beside the point, we need to find her before she gets into trouble. Sabo agreed. Let me know when you have any news. With that, Sabo hung up. Silence soon followed, but not the awkward silence, it was the silence before the storm. LUUUUFFFFYYYYY. End flashback that had been 20 minutes ago. Marco sighed again as a new string of swear words flew out of Ace's mouth, followed by more flames. It completely baffled him on why the girl would run off, from what Ace had told him and Thatch, the latter currently in a coma after being stabbed by a former crewmate. The girl was very sweet, and nice, though very energetic. There was no reason that came to mind on why she did. Marco doubted Ace could figure it out at the moment either. And while it was amusing to see Ace so burning mad, Marco couldn't let it continue lest the seething division leader burn down the ship. And with as many devil fruit users as there were on the ship, a lot of people would be drowning, including the captain. Marco approached Ace and placed a calming hand on his shoulder, disabling the seething flames in the process. It's a good thing that Ace can't burn me, he thought. Ace, calm down. If it makes you feel better, I'll help you find her, Yoi, he stated. Ace took a calming breath, his fists clenching slightly before he relaxed. He looked at Marco gratefully. Thank you, Marco. No problem. Now let's go tell Oyaji that we're leaving for a while, he said, giving the young man a carefree grin before he left to tell the captain of the Whitebeard pirates what was going on. Ace paused for a second before following the older man. Where are you, Luffy? The first thing that Luffy noted when she woke up from her nap inside the barrel was that she was rolling. With her dragon abilities, she could sense that she was in a room surrounded by at least 4 people. She wrinkled her nose a bit when their scent reached her nose. A dragon's nose is very sensitive. Pirates, she thought. All 4 were males, although one of them seemed different from the others, more scared, but she couldn't be sure. Just then another scent reached the girl's nose. It smelled like a fruit, an orange perhaps, but with a mixture of sadness, pain and loneliness. Before she could pinpoint the source, she found herself sitting upright. Well, looky here, boys. She heard one of the pirates sneer. It's our favorite little coward. Trying to duck out of all the action, runt? No, not at all. A second voice stammered. I was just bringing this wine barrel over to you guys. She heard laughter. We'll help lighten up your load, a third voice said. We're thirsty. Another pirate said. Why you can't? What if Lady Alvida finds out, She won't find out as long as you keep your trap shut, yelled one of the pirates. Right, Coby? Why yeah, that's true. Stand back, boys, I'll open it the old-fashioned way, said the third pirate, cracking his knuckles. Luffy on the other hand had had enough of being in the barrel. Dragons do not like being in very small places for long, and although Luffy could only bear with it for so long, before she started to feel trapped. Dragons hate being chained or trapped, they needed to feel and be free. The half-dragon was no exception. I'll have to do a partial shift soon, she thought, as her human skin started to itch slightly with the need to produce scales. Thankfully it wasn't too strong yet. I can go at least one more day or so before I need to shift. On top of that I'm hungry. Shoving her feet against the bottom, the girl punched her way out of the barrel. At the same time she'd unintentionally knocked out one of the pirates. Line break. This was the last thing 15-year-old Coby had expected. Just as his crewmate swung his fist down to open the barrel, a little girl burst out of said barrel and knocked the pirate out. Coby and the other conscious pirates just stared in bewilderment at the girl as she looked down at the knocked-out pirate. The little girl looked about 12 years old with long black hair that reached her waist, and brown eyes, though he could have sworn they looked gold for a second. Under her left eye was a scar with 2 stitches. She was wearing a white t-shirt under a sleeveless red hoodie that was slightly too big for her as it hung off her shoulders, and blue shorts. She had on a pair of sandals, while hanging from her neck by a string was a straw hat with a red ribbon. Coby had to admit, she looked cute. She then looked up at them. Who are you guys? Who the hell are you? The 3 older pirates yelled at the girl. Your friend is gonna catch a cold sleeping like that, she said as she climbed out of the barrel. You're the one who knocked him out. One of the pirates pointed a sword at her. Who the hell are you, you little brat? Don't you know that we're pirates? She completely ignored them as she turned to Coby. I'm hungry. Got any food? She asked. Don't ignore us. The pirates screamed as they brought their swords down on the little girl, causing Coby to scream. Luffy winced slightly at the volume. Other than that, she was completely unfazed by their actions. As the swords came down, the tips of both swords broke off and spun up into the ceiling. The men took a few steps back away from the little girl, their bodies shaking with fear and disbelief. Coby, who had uncovered his eyes, stared in awe at the 12-year-old. Said 12-year-old looked at the scared pirates in confusion. What was that for? Who are you? The girl gave off the biggest grin Coby had ever seen. Oh, me? I'm Monkey D. Luffy. Call me Luffy. After she said that, the pirates fled in terror, dragging their unconscious crewmate behind them. She. Luffy laughed. Those guys are weird. Anyway, what's your name, mister? See Coby. She smiled. Nice to meet you, Coby. Do you know where the food is? Coby blinked, then he began to freak out. This is no time to worry about food. Quick, you gotta run. If they come back with their buddies, then they'll kill you on the spot. I don't care about that, I'm hungry, Luffy said, trying not wince at how loud the older boy was being. How can you just blow this off like that? There are hundreds of them up on deck and they're waiting for an excuse to kill anything. Where am I anyway? Is this a marine ship or a pirate ship? Oh, you're on a cruise ship that's being overrun by Captain Alvida and her crew. Oh, are you a pirate? Luffy asked, though she doubted it. He didn't smell like one. Though the only scent she picked up from him was fear. No, I'm Captain Alvida's cabin boy. I was forced to become a pirate. I was going fishing like I normally do when Alvida and her men seized the boat, taking me with them. I've been their cabin boy for 2 years. You're pretty stupid, you know that? Luffy stated bluntly. Thank you for your honesty, he said sarcastically, lowering his head in shame. If you hate it here, then leave. No way. Impossible. I can't escape from Alvida. Just thinking about what she'd do to me scares me. Nope, 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 no. Bonk. The dragon's fist shot out, nailing Coby in the head. Ow. Why do you hit me? Felt like it, Luffy said, though she did it to get him to stop screaming her ears off. Hey. Well, I'm used to it anyway. All the pirates on board her ship smack me around for laughs. So you're a coward and a weakling? I hate people like you. Gee, thanks, Coby said. So, Luffy, what are you doing at sea? She smiled. To become the first queen of the pirates. She laughed at the look on the boy's face. You're a pirate? Yep. Crew? Just me for now. How old are you? 12, she replied as Coby froze. No way, Coby thought. You're 12, and you're going to be the king of the pirates? Queen. She corrected. No way, no way, no way. Millions of other pirates are after the One Piece, and you're only. I don't care, Coby stopped. I don't care how old I am, Luffy said, smiling without any hesitation in her voice. Her brown eyes had taken a golden tint. I made a promise to a great man that I'd be the queen of the pirates. And if I die, then I'll die fighting for my dream. Coby just stared at the girl in front of him. She's willing to. Luffy smiled, showing her canines, as his scent changed ever so slightly. Hey, Luffy-chan. Do you think, if I tried, that I could be a marine? A marine? Coby looked at her, a small fire burned in his eyes. It's always been my dream to be a marine and hunt down criminals. I know we'd be enemies, but do you think I could do it? How would I know? Luffy answered. But I do know that you will never find it here, Coby ni. I'm gonna do it, Coby exclaimed. I'm gonna break out and catch Alvida myself. Suddenly Luffy sensed something very large head straight at them from above. She looked up just as the ceiling caved in as something landed in the room, causing dust to fly around. Who are you planning on capturing, Coby? Demanded a harsh voice. Coby screamed. When the dust settled, the Luffy found herself looking at the most ugliest woman she had ever seen. The woman was very obese with long wavy black hair with freckles on her cheeks. It didn't help when the woman's scent hit her. Luffy nearly gagged at the amount of perfume that came off the woman. What did she do? Bathe in the stuff? Luffy wondered. Sometimes I hate my nose. Well, answer me. When she received no answer from the boy, she turned to look at the girl next to him. Who's this little brat? She's obviously not Zoro. Zoro? Luffy wondered. Coby, Alvida said. Who's the most beautiful woman in all the seas? That is why you. Coby started to say before Luffy interrupted him. He asked, pointing at the woman. Who's the fat lady? Coby and Alvida just gaped at the girl, before Alvida raised her mace in anger. You brat! She roared as the mace swung down. Luffy dodged, landing next to Coby. Let's go, Coby ni, she said, smiling at him, before she jumped through the hole Alvida made earlier. Off fresh air. She thought. Luffy landed with ease on the deck. She released her hold on Coby before looking behind her to see a crewmate swinging his sword at her. She ducked, before landing a kick in the man's stomach, sending him flying back into his allies. She grinned and wagged a finger at the pirates. It's not nice to sneak up on someone, mister, she said, scolding the man. Coby couldn't help but laugh slightly at the sight of a 12-year-old little girl scolding a grown man, like a mother would do a child. Luffy smiled, before her eyes widened, sensing a large group of pirates behind her. "Ah, and it's also not nice to gang up on someone," she yelled as she ran across the deck with pirates hot on her tail. As she ran, she grabbed a hold of the mast, causing her arm to stretch as she continued to run. The pirates chasing her froze as looked from the girl to her hand then back to her. Luffy looked back at the pirates with an evil grin. "Just kidding." The pirates freaked, turning to run away. "Gum Gum Rocket!" Luffy shouted, slamming into them all, scattering them all over the deck. "Haha. That was fun." Coby just stared at Luffy. "Luffy-chan, what are you?" "I'm a rubber girl," Luffy said, as she reached up and stretched her cheek. "So you're made of rubber?" Someone cleared their throat. Coby turned, only to freak at the sight of Alvida. "So, you've eaten one of the devil fruits?" "Yeah. I ate the gum gum one," she responded, allowing her cheek to snap back in place. "I see. I've heard rumors of them existing, but I've never seen any evidence of them until today." She paused before continuing. "You're more skilled than the average deck swabber. What's a little girl like you doing out at sea?" "I'm a pirate." "Ah, all by yourself on these waters?" "It's just me for now, but I'll find my nakama tomorrow, or maybe next week." Alvida only laughed as she demanded, "So tell me, brat, if we're both pirates and we're not under the same flag, then that makes us enemies, am I right?" "Luffy-chan, let's go," Coby whispered to her in fear. "But why? You saw how powerful her club is. And of all the villainous cheats in all these waters, she's easily the most." Coby suddenly stopped himself in mid-sentence. He stared long and hard at Luffy as he remembered what she had said earlier. Flashback: "I made a promise to a great man that I'd be the queen of the pirates, and if I die, then I'll die fighting for my dream." End flashback. Luffy smiled, as if she knew what was going to happen. "Well, go on, tell me," Alvida asked with a wide grin on her face. Coby stared at Luffy, before he turned and looked Alvida straight in the eyes and yelled, "You're the most ugliest thing in the seas." Luffy roared in laughter. Alvida looked ready to explode in anger. "What did you say? That's right, you're ugly, and I'm done being your cabin boy. I'm gonna fight for my dreams from now on. I'm gonna be a marine and catch criminals. And I'm gonna start with your lousy ass first." "You little brat," Alvida shouted as she raised her mace. Coby screamed but stayed put. "I did it, I fought for my dream." "Well said, Coby ni," Luffy said as she pushed him aside, taking the full force of the hit. "Luffy-chan," Coby screamed, thinking the girl had perished. But then he saw the girl give the cheekiest grin possible. "That won't work," she said in a sing-song voice. "'Cause I'm made of rubber." "What? Gum gum. Pistol," Luffy cried as she nailed the larger woman in the gut, sending her flying, where she disappeared with a dang. Luffy then turned to the rest of the Alvida pirates. "Get Coby ni a boat," she commanded. "He's gonna join the Marines." Author's note: I hope you enjoyed the chapter. I'm gonna have chapter 4 done soon. Luffy meets Zoro. Chapter 4 is going to be called Dragon and Her First Mate. It's also going to reveal why she ran away. Can this boat go any slower? Luffy thought as she sat at the front of the boat. It had been a couple of hours since she and Coby left the cruise ship, and the half-dragon was already bored. "Coby ni, how far is the next island?" Coby looked at the girl. That's the 5th time she's asked, he thought in exasperation. As long as the wind holds, we should be at Shell's Island in about 3 hours. The 12-year-old groaned, before she remembered something. "Hey, Coby ni." "Yes, Luffy-chan." "Back there, you guys mentioned something about Zoro. Who is he?" "Roronoa Zoro is also known as the Pirate Hunter. I heard he's being held at the Marine base on Shell's Town. Rumors say that he's a demon in human form. Why do you ask?" "I was thinking on adding him to my crew." "What?" "I haven't made up my mind about adding him to my crew yet," the girl stated, "but, if he's a good person." "He was arrested because he's not." Line break. Zoro's pav. Stop joking. "Huh? What's that?" Roronoa Zoro looked up to see the 2 kids up on the wall. One was a pink-haired boy who frankly looked like a wimp. Zoro paid no mind to him. It was the little girl next to him who drew his attention. She was young, about 12 years old, and was quite small and skinny for her age. It was clear she had run away from home, as she looked uncomfortable being near a marine base. she watching him intently, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "You can't, Luffy-chan. If you free him, he could make a mess of the town, even kill you," the pink-haired boy yelled. The girl, Luffy, flinched slightly before she gave the boy an annoyed look. Zoro couldn't help but roll his eyes at the boy. "Damn brat." "Oi!" Zoro called over to them, causing the boy to yelp in fear. "You two get lost." Suddenly, a third person appeared on the wall. It was a little girl, who Zoro recognized immediately as Rika from the restaurant. No, he thought. They need to get out of here. Zoro watched as she shushed the other two, before she jumped down from the wall. "No one's pav. Ah, Luffy-chan, go help her, she's gonna get herself killed," Coby exclaimed. Luffy just watched as the girl ran over to Zoro, holding a small brown cloth in her hand. Whatever was inside the cloth was sweet. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Zoro asked, as he looked down at Rika. "Do you want to die or something? Get lost." "Here," Rika said as she unwrapped the cloth to reveal 2 rice balls. "I made these for you. It's my first time making them, so I hope you like them." While he was touched by the girl's kindness, he knew what would happen if she stayed here. "I'm not hungry," Zoro snapped. "Now get lost." "But I don't want it, leave me, I'll kill you if you don't go." He didn't mean the last part. He wouldn't go and kill the girl for trying to help him. He did mean what he said in his second sentence. These damn Marines would have a care in the world, even after murdering an innocent child. "Please leave." Now, Zoro, it's not nice to bully." Everyone looked over to see a skinny, lanky-looking boy with 2 Marine guards behind him walking towards Zoro and Rika. "Thank goodness, the girl is safe now," Coby sighed in relief. Luffy on the other hand just sat on the wall. She took one look at the helmet-shaped hair boy, and immediately disliked him. He reminded her of the nobles back on Dawn, who acted like they were superior to the other people of the island. He might have been the one that Ji-chan wanted me to marry, she thought, with a shudder. Well, if it isn't the lieutenant's bastard son. Bastard? Don't get cocky. My daddy is a Marine lieutenant. Helmeppo then turned to Rika. "Oh, rice balls, don't mind if I do." Luffy held back a growl when he took one and started eating it. "Hey, that's for Zoro ni, not you," Rika cried, before the blonde teen spit the food out in disgust. "What's this? It's got sugar in it. You're supposed to make rice balls with salt. But I thought they'd taste better with sugar." "Well, you thought wrong," the blonde said as he whacked the remaining rice ball from Rika's hands. He then proceeded to stomp on them. "How cruel," Coby gasped. Luffy was shaking with contained fury as she listened to the little girl's cries. A small growl escaped through her clenched lips. Her eyes, hidden by the shadow of her hat, were now a golden brown. Her urge to shift grew stronger, as did her anger. Her other half's presence was beginning to show. Zoro was watching as the bastard continued to step on Rika's rice balls. When he sensed it, his head jerked up as he tried to locate the source of the unknown presence. But then just as it appeared, it vanished. What was that? He wondered. Luffy took another deep breath, trying to calm down. That was close, she thought. Helmeppo stomped on what remained of the rice balls one last time, before he turned to one of the Marines behind him. "You there, throw the brat out." What? Helmeppo grabbed the front of the man's shirt. "I'm telling you to throw her out of here. Are you trying to disobey me? I'll tell my father." Aye, sir." One Marine stooped down to pick Rika up before quickly throwing her over the wall. Rika screamed as she sailed through the air. Luffy wasted no time. She pushed herself off the wall. Wrapping her arms around the girl, Luffy turned her body so she received the worst of the impact as the two slammed into the ground. "Are you okay?" "Yeah. I'm fine." "That's good. You should go home now." "Okay," Luffy said, giving Rika a gentle smile. "Coby ni, you go with her." Line break on the other side of the wall. Zoro was glaring at Helmeppo as he laughed. "I didn't think you'd have this kind of endurance. You're very stubborn." "That's right. I'll survive for a month, then leave as our agreement. You better not back out of your part of the deal." "I wouldn't dream of it, Zoro," Helmeppo said with a laugh. "Hey mister." Everyone turned just in time to see what looked like a water balloon hit Helmeppo in the face, causing the boy to fall over. The balloon had burst open, covering him in a pink glittery dye that stuck to his face and hair, turning them pink. "Helmeppo, The two Marines guards rushed over to the teen. They hoisted him into the air. Apparently the balloon knocked him out, and ran back towards the base. Zoro was laughing his ass off at the sight of the now glittery pink-haired man. The one responsible for the balloon jumped down from the wall with a big grin on her face. Zoro turned to look at her. "Kid, I don't know who you are, but thanks, I needed that." Luffy grinned. "So who are you?" "My name's Luffy. I'm gonna be the queen of the pirates. Call me Luffy. I'm looking for people to join my pirate crew." Whatever Zoro expected the girl to say was definitely not that. "Aren't you a little young to be a pirate?" Zoro asked. "How old are you?" 12. "Why would a 12-year-old little girl want to be a pirate?" "Because it's my dream. I don't care how old I am, I'm going to follow through with it," she said. "Don't you have a dream, Ni-chan?" While Zoro looked surprised by the use of brother, he quickly answered. "Yeah, I have a dream. My dream is to be the world's greatest swordsman." Luffy's grin grew bigger. "Cool, then join my crew." But Zoro shook his head. "Sorry, kid." Her face fell slightly. Zoro immediately felt guilty. She turned to leave when a sudden thought came to Zoro. "Hey kid." She looked at him. "Can you pick that up?" he asked, gesturing to the wrecked rice balls. "Are you sure you want to eat these?" she asked as she picked them up. "Shut up and just give them to me." Luffy just shrugged, before walking over to do as he requested. Zoro choked as he forced the rice balls down. "Tell that girl I said thanks." Luffy smiled and walked away. Line break. She returned a few minutes later, livid as hell. Her eyes were now a golden amber, and this time she did nothing to hide them. Strapped to her back were 3 katanas. Following her was Coby. Zoro, who was remembering his childhood where he promised a great friend, was JTS when Luffy walked up to him. "You're back. I thought." He stopped when he noticed his katanas. "Why do you have those?" "I'm going to cut you free," she said. "I thought I said no too." "You're going to die if you stay here." He wasn't going to keep his promise, he was going to execute you today. "Why that? If I free you, you have to join my crew," she said with an evil grin, her golden eyes flashing. "Evil little thing, aren't you?" he thought. "Fine, I'll join you. You convinced me to accompany you on this crazy adventure of yours. Besides, I wouldn't be able to sleep with the knowledge that I let I brat get herself killed when I could have done something about it." Luffy giggled at his attempt to cover his pride. But before she could free him, Axe-Hand Morgan showed up demanding blood. Though it was hard to find him scary when he was covered from head to toe in rainbow glitter. Zoro looked at the girl. "Your handiwork, I presume?" "Yup. Broke his statue too," she said through clenched teeth. At the sight of the lieutenant her anger and irritation had returned. Her body shook as she forced her other half back. "I can't shift here." Zoro noticed the tremors. Concern flashed through his eyes. "Hey, are you?" he started to say, but was interrupted by Morgan who, at the mention of his statue, had turned red. The man literally had steam coming from his ears. "Enough. Those who've betrayed Lieutenant Morgan shall die here, men fire." The surrounding Marines hesitated, as what sane and decent man would shoot a 12-year-old girl? Sure, she was aiding a criminal, but she was just a child. But then Morgan ordered them to shoot themselves if they weren't going to listen, so with great regret the Marines fired. Luffy wasted no time. She threw herself in front of her friends, her arms spread wide, acting as a human shield, but as the bullets got closer, she realized something. "I'm not tall enough." She closed her eyes and did the only thing she could do. "Hey, what are you doing? Get out of the..." Zoro yelled, only for his voice to die in his throat at the sight before him. 2 big sapphire-colored bat-like wings sprouted from her back. She spread her wings wide just as the bullets hit. The dragon felt the parts of her body got hit stretch behind her, before quickly retracting. The bullets shot back towards the Marines. But none paid any mind to them, even as one missed Morgan's face by an inch. They were all staring at the sight before them, just as surprised and stunned as the swordsman. There in front of everyone stood the 12-year-old, but her appearance had changed drastically. Her eyes were now like 2 tiny pools of liquid gold with a black slitted pupil in each. Her midnight black hair was now snow white with ocean blue highlights. 2 small white horns had replaced the straw hat and could be seen on top of her head. Her forearms were covered in sapphire-colored scales, as were her hands, which were now claws. And a long, stocky tail covered with sapphire scales sprouted from her lower back. Stunned silence echoed through the air until it was shattered when Zoro recovered first. "Wanna tell me what you are?" But it was Morgan who answered. "Well, what do you know?" He studied the girl in front of him, with new interest. Luffy let out a small growl. She did not like the look in his eyes. "Looks like we've got an ancient that's eaten a devil fruit. I know just what to do with you. How about becoming a slave for the celestial dragons, then capture the girl?" The Marines charged, swords raised. Luffy flinched at the term, slave. The fear in her eyes was unmistakable, her tail wrapped around her stomach. Not again, she thought, her hand going to her side. I won't lose my freedom again. Hey, kid. Luffy turned to look up at Zoro. Underneath the scent of BO, she could smell sake and metal. The look in his eyes reminded her of her brothers. She quickly used her claws to slice his robes. Before she could blink, the dragon felt a soft wind pass by her towards the charging Marines. The katanas on her back seemed to have vanished. Zoro's pav Zoro nearly had a heart attack when young girl he had just agreed to follow threw herself between him, the pink-haired boy, and the bullets. He screamed for her to get out of the way, only to be shocked into silence when the girl sprouted wings, a tail, claws and scales. He didn't miss the aura coming from the girl. It was the same one he had sensed earlier. "So, it was you." He couldn't help but become angry when he saw the fear in her eyes when the Marine said, "Slave." When he called out to her, his voice was calm and gentle, surprising him greatly. "When did I get so attached? I barely know the kid." As soon as she had cut his bindings, he quickly darted past her, taking the swords as he did so. With a loud clang, Zoro had blocked all the swords with his own. The Marines paled considerably when they realized just who it was standing before them. "You make one move and you're dead," he growled, "no one's pav." "Cool," Luffy whispered. The aura Zoro gave off greatly reminded her of her brothers. She couldn't stop the smile from her face. Her wings, claws, tail and scales vanished. "What are you cowards doing? Kill Roronoa and capture the girl," Morgan roared. Luffy growled at the man. She quickly jumped over Zoro, stepping on his back lightly to get some air. "Gum gum whip," she shouted as stretched out her right leg, knocking away all the Marines, leaving only Morgan standing. Then Luffy jumped over to where Morgan was standing, and before the man could do anything, the dragon had picked the man up, even though he was at least 10 times her own height, and flipped him over her shoulder, slamming him into the ground with enough force to knock him out. "Well, that takes care of you," she said, line break. Luffy, Zoro and Coby were all sitting in the restaurant that Rika's mother owned and eating peacefully, though it was a sight to see watching a 12-year-old girl scarf down 40 bowls of food and not gain any visual weight. "How can you eat more food than me who's had no food for 3 weeks?" Zoro couldn't help but ask. "But I was hungry," she said, "and I haven't gone fishing in a while." "That's not answering my question." They all stopped when a local Marine walked in. "I would like to thank you for saving the town and the Marine base," he said. "And I'm sorry for our actions against you." This part was meant for Luffy, who just waved it off. "But unfortunately, we cannot be allowed to harbor pirates. I'm sorry, but I will have to ask you to leave." "Okay," Luffy said before pointing to Coby. "He's not a pirate. He just got caught up in the mess I made. His dream is to be a Marine." The Marine seemed to be thinking about it as he observed the girl in front of him. Then his eyes widened in recognition. "Why, you're Garp the Fist's granddaughter, aren't you?" Luffy tensed, biting her lip as she slowly nodded, wondering if he'd detain her, then call her grandfather. "I can grab Zoro and run." Everyone else was staring at her shocked. This runaway little girl was Garp's granddaughter. The Marine nodded before he spoke again. "Well, I can't say that I didn't see you, but if you're still when I go to call HQ," he said nonchalantly, deciding to give the girl the chance to run. Luffy slumped in her seat, relieved, before she grabbed Zoro's arm and took off towards her boat. The Marine laughed, before he turned his attention to Coby. "So, you want to be a Marine?" It had been a few days since the 2 division commanders left the Moby in search of Ace's wayward little sister. It had been relatively quiet, when Ace suddenly stiffened. Whatever had caused the man's sudden discomfort was escaping the Phoenix. There was nothing around them to cause such a reaction. "What's wrong, Yoi?" Marco asked. "I don't know, but I can't shake the feeling that something happened to Luffy," Ace said. A sudden thought dawned on Marco that he really didn't know much about girl, except for her age and some of her personality. You know, you never told us all that much about your sister, other than her age, name, personality and behavior. So, I gotta ask, what's she like, Yoi? He watched as Ace's expression turned to one of brotherly affection and care. Luffy is a really sweet girl, though if she ever hears you say that, she'd hit you upside the head as hard as she could, and then prank you afterwards. She prefers to be called Luffy. She's eaten the gum fruit. Then his look darkened. Marco noticed and waited silently. Of course her powers are gonna get her killed or enslaved one day. Marco's eyes widened. Enslaved? It's why my brothers and I are not particularly fond of her being off the island. She was safe there, but out here, if anyone finds out what she is, there will be hell to pay. Wait, you said, what she is? What did you mean by that? Ace realized that the man's enthusiasm on the topic was due to the fact that he never told anyone, including Oyaji, about what his sister was. It was most likely because of the lingering fear on what would happen if anyone were to find out. He sighed. I mean that my sister isn't really human, she's half dragon. Marco nearly choked, his eyes widened. A dragon? His sister is a dragon. But Ace wasn't done. Because of what she is, she can still swim, even though she's eaten a devil fruit. Marco had a very dark look on his face now. He didn't need any more information. Now he just wanted to make sure that Ace's little sister didn't end up in the slavers market or dead anytime soon. If the world government discovers that she's an ancient. He didn't finish the thought. Instead he pulled out a Den Mushi. He knew that they could not continue the search without telling Oyaji. He needed to know just how bad the situation with Ace's runaway sister was. Ace realized what his friend was doing, but did not stop him from making the call. Hey Marco, how's Vista? I need to talk to Oyaji now. Sure thing. A few minutes later the two heard their father's deep voice on the other end. What is it, Marco? It's about Ace's sister, Yoi. What about her? Judging from your tone, you just found out something about the brat from Ace, and it isn't good. Yeah. Oyaji, Ace's sister, she's in a lot of danger right now. What do you mean, boy? Oyaji, she an ancient. There was dead silence. Ace told me that she's half dragon. And despite eating a devil fruit she can still swim. Oyaji, if she gets caught by the wrong people, and they figure out what she is, I don't want to think about it. There was now dead silence. Suddenly, there was a loud bang as they heard Whitebeard yelling orders to his 13 commanders to go looking for Ace's sister. Oyaji spoke one last time too before he ordered them to hurry up and find her. Ace, Marco, I've got the others searching for the brat. Don't worry, we'll find her. With that their father hung up. Don't worry Ace, Marco said as he turned to his friend, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. We'll find her. Ace gave Marco a grateful smile. Ah. Zoro bolted up, hand instinctively going for his katana. A quick glance showed no attackers. Then his eyes landed on Luffy. What he saw made his heart drop. The young girl's frame was shaking and drenched in sweat. Her face was ghostly pale and her body was thrashing, as if fighting off invisible attackers. Scales were appearing in waves on her skin before vanishing. Zoro instantly picked up the 12-year-old, wrapping his arms around her securely and protectively. Mama, Ace ni, Sabo ni, La ni, help me, Luffy whimpered. Hey, Luffy, Zoro said, his voice soft, which he would later deny if anyone asked, as he tried to wake the girl. Her eyes shot open. She looked around before her eyes settled on Zoro. Zoro ni, came the voice of the trembling girl. Hey Luffy. Zoro ni. With that the little dragon cried into his chest, clutching his shirt. This is real, right? She choked out, through sobs. I'm free? Not in a cage? Zoro's eyes widened and he unconsciously tightened his grip on her. Yes, Captain, don't worry, you're safe. You're not in a cage, he reassured in a firm voice. He continued to hold the girl as she sobbed. Eventually she quieted, falling asleep in the safety of her first mate's protective hold. What the hell did this kid go through? Zoro wondered, as he too fell back asleep, holding his captain in his arms. Line break Luffy sat at the bow of the boat, staring at the skies and ocean, her eyes slightly red from all the crying she did earlier. She sighed, gaining the attention of Zoro. He had not once brought up the issue of what happened earlier, for that she was grateful, but the 12-year-old dragon decided that the man she saw as an older brother needed to know. A week before I ran away, I was captured by slave traders. Luffy began, still staring out into the distance. I was trying to fly when I found myself underneath a net. The next thing I remember is waking up in my partial form in a cage on a ship. Before I could do anything, some guys came in. One of them had a brand. I was pulled out of the cage and chained to a wall. Just before they could brand me, I lost control and shifted into my full dragon form. I destroyed everything on the ship, and escaped into the sea. She stopped for a moment, taking deep breaths to calm herself. Zoro sat quietly listening, waiting for her to continue. Outside he showed no emotion, but inside he was boiling with rage. So that's why she said that earlier. I got back home a day before I left. She continued. The same day, I found out that my grandfather had come for a visit. Or so I thought. I overheard him telling my foster mother that he was going to take me to another island, where I'd be married off to a noble's son. So instead of letting them take my freedom away, I ran. I didn't want to break the promise I made my brothers. But I also didn't want to break my promise with Shanks. Zoro's paw. Zoro sat there in silence as what the girl had told him sank in. So she almost lost her freedom not once, but twice. What kind of grandfather marries off his own granddaughter? Then he reached over and bonked her in the head. Ow, what did you do that for? Stop being so depressed, kid. I didn't know I agreed to follow a wimpy captain, he said, with a smirk on his face. I am not a wimp, she shouted. Zoro couldn't help but laugh. This seemed to annoy the little dragon, as she tackled him to the bottom of the boat. Ha, she said with a laugh. Their playful fight lasted for a few minutes before it ended with Luffy falling out of the boat. Luffy. Zoro was about to jump in after the kid, when he got a face full of salt water. He spluttered, whipping the salt from his eyes. When he could see again, he found Luffy treading water laughing at him. I thought devil fruit users couldn't swim. They can't, she replied, but I can 'cause I'm part dragon. Well, we don't have to worry about you drowning, he said, as he reached out to pull her back in. But before he could reach her, a giant bird came flying down and snatched up the girl in its beak. Silence. Then, an 18-year-old orange-haired woman was running down the streets, dragging a bag of treasure and a map to the Grand Line. That was close, she huffed. Zoro ni, help me. The woman looked up to see a little girl trapped in the beak of a big bird. Whoa, what the hell? She watched as the girl punched the bird, prompting it to let her go. Kya, Zoro ni, catch me, the girl yelled as she fell. The orange-haired woman dropped her bag. She had no clue who Zoro was, but he obviously wasn't around. She held out her hands. Hey, don't worry, kid. I got you, she called. The screaming girl fell into her arms. Whoa, that was some fall. Are you okay? Luffy looked up at the woman who'd caught her. She seemed familiar. Then the woman's scent reached her nose. Oranges, pain, sadness, loneliness. It was the same scent she'd noticed when she met Coby. Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you, Ne-chan. Luffy smiled. I'm Luffy. I'm Nami. Line break. Luffy sat on a chair cross-legged in a house she knew that didn't belong to Nami, who sat across from her. But she'd worry about that later as she was busy eating the sandwiches that Nami had made. Said woman was currently admiring the map she'd stolen from another pirate. Hey, Ne-chan. Nami looked at her, surprised by the Ne-chan comment. Are you a navigator? I want to be pirate queen, but I need a navigator. Want to join? No. Luffy jumped. I'm a pirate thief. I steal from pirates. Why would I want to join them? She said, giving the girl a hard look. That was a big mistake. Come on, please, Luffy begged, giving Nami her best puppy dog face. Nami tried to say no but couldn't. She finally sighed, giving the girl a small smile as her expression softened. Fine, yeah, I got a big sister, Luffy cheered. Nami gave a soft grin. It felt nice to be called a big sister. Boom. Both girls jumped, while Luffy covered her ears at the sudden loud noise. They quickly ran outside only to see a row of demolished houses. They looked at each other before taking off in the direction of where the shot was fired. Line break. Zoro was, despite what happened earlier, beginning to wonder if it was such a good idea following a 12-year-old half-dragon. He was also wondering how the hell did he manage to get himself locked in a cage. After the bird had taken off with his captain, he'd come across 3 pirates stranded in the water, nearly ran them over too, as he tried to follow the girl. Now once he had reached land, the three pirates had ganged up on him, and now here he was sitting in a cage, listening to an idiot with a big red nose. Though the pirates were incredibly stupid, as they never took his katanas. And he still hadn't found Luffy. "Where is my map?" the big-nosed idiot, Buggy, called out. Apparently some woman had stolen the man's map and treasure, and was nowhere to be found. This pissed him off greatly, and so Buggy decided he could find the woman himself, by blowing up the town with a weapon he called the Buggy Ball. Though this time, Buggy decided to point the cannon in Zoro's direction. Just as he fired, Luffy appeared from nowhere and kicked the blasted thing right back to its owner. The Buggy pirates screamed as their own weapon blew up in their faces. Luffy landed on the roof. Next to her was the woman who'd stolen Buggy's map and treasure. "Hey, Zoro ni," she said cheerfully, completely ignoring the destruction she just caused. "There you are. How'd you beat me here?" A tick mark appeared on his forehead. "Seriously, I was looking for you." The little brat just laughed, as she broke open the cage. Line break. A few minutes later the trio found themselves in front of a pet store. Much to the little dragon's delight, she saw a dog sitting in front of the store. "Hey, a puppy." The dog barked at the girl, its tail wagging as she picked it up. "What's wrong, boy?" she asked. The dog barked again. "I see." Luffy smiled. "You speak animal?" Nami asked. Luffy hesitated for a second before she responded. "I can't really speak to animals, but I can understand them somewhat." Nami looked skeptical. "So, what did he say?" "He said he's protecting this store." It was then Zoro turned to the woman next to him. "So who's this?" he asked. "I'm Nami. She's gonna be our navigator," Luffy said happily. "Oi, you people." The trio turned to see an elder man coming up to them. "Leave Chow Chow alone." "Chow Chow?" Luffy asked. "Who are you?" Zoro asked. "I'm the mayor of this town." Line break. "So this store is Chow Chow's treasure?" Luffy asked, after the mayor explained to them the dog's history. The mayor nodded. "So you three are pirates?" "I'm just a navigator," Nami said, then pointed to the other two. Luffy was leaning against Zoro, who was napping, with Chow Chow in her lap. "They're pirates." The mayor raised an eyebrow at this. Turning to the child he asked, "Aren't you a little young to be a pirate? Where are your parents?" Luffy stiffened slightly and looked away, refusing to answer the question. Zoro, who'd woken up when the girl tensed, shot the mayor a glare. This did not go unnoticed by Nami. But before she could say anything, a loud growl echoed across the streets. "Oh no. It's Moji the Beast Tamer. We gotta run." With that the mayor and Nami ran for cover, leaving Luffy, Zoro and Chow Chow to fend for themselves. Line break. The mayor and Nami stared slack-jawed at the 12-year-old that had just beaten a full-grown lion and his tamer single-handedly. Said child was silently walking back to Chow Chow, who sat in front of the now destroyed store, her eyes hidden by her hat. They all watched as Luffy set a box of dog food in front of the dog. "I'm sorry," she told the dog. "This is all I managed to save from the lion." Chow Chow stared at the box for a moment, before he licked the girl on the cheek. Then he took the box and walked away. It was silent for a few moments before, boom, everyone spun around just in time to see a row of houses be annihilated by a buggy ball. "My house!" the mayor cried. Luffy stared in the direction of where the blast came from. There was no emotion on her face, though Zoro noticed that her eyes were turning gold. "That is it," the mayor roared. "I've had enough of this. I am the mayor of this town. I won't run while my treasure is being destroyed." Luffy smiled, though her eyes still held that golden tint, when he declared that he would fight. Though he only got a few feet away before Luffy knocked him out. "Why did you do that?" Nami yelled at the girl. "He'll die if he fights, so I'll fight for him." With that Luffy began to walk to where Buggy was. Zoro fell into a step behind her. "What did I get myself into?" Nami wondered. They reached their destination. Luffy gave a devilish grin, flashing her canines. Then she took a deep breath before shouting out, "Hey, huge red ugly big nose." There was dead silence, then, "Fire! Fire!" came a screeching cry. Boom, line break. Gum guumbazooka. Luffy cried as her scaled-covered fist slammed into Buggy, sending him flying. Luffy huffed as she turned and walked over to where her hat laid on the ground. She gritted her teeth, forcing back her other half, when she saw the 3 large gashes left by Buggy. She continued to stare at it until Nami came to her. "I can fix it for you," she said gently. The 12-year-old gave the older woman a grateful smile. Line break. A few minutes later, all 3 were sitting in their boat and headed for the next island. Luffy was once again sitting at the front of the boat. Nami was in her own boat, fixing the girl's hat. Zoro was napping. "All right, all finished," Nami said as she handed Luffy her hat. "Thank you, Nami." Luffy said as she hugged the woman. Then the 12-year-old's eyes landed on the sleeping first mate. A big mischievous smile appeared on her face, and pulled a marker out of her hoodie pocket. Nami watched as the girl carefully and quietly began to draw on the man's face. Zoro's eyes shot open, but it was too late. Nami and the little prankster busted out laugh drawn. Zoro took one look at the marker in the little dragon's hand and knew what she did. Luffy. The girls just laughed harder. Chapter's done. Author's note. Because of what she is, Luffy can understand animals. She also knows that dragon is her father. She was told by her mother before she died. After Zoro, who in the crew should be the most protective of Luffy? Any ideas? Kaya and Robin are gonna be the mothers of the crew. It had been a couple days since the trio had left Orange Town. Luffy was staring into the sea, lost in her thoughts. Zoro was napping, though he had confiscated Luffy's markers. Nami was reading maps, though she did shoot a glance towards the 12-year-old on occasion. During the fight with Buggy, Nami had noticed that after he had damaged the hat, the child's eyes had changed from brown to gold. Nami had just shrugged it off as a trick of the light, though when said child had sent the clown flying, her arms were covered in what looked like scales. When Nami had questioned it, despite Zoro's word of caution, Luffy had told the older woman that she was a dragon. She can't be a dragon, Nami thought. Dragons are just myth. Okay, Nami started to say, catching the attention of her companions. We cannot sail for the Grand Line like this. This crew, provisions and ship are way too small. We need booze, said Zoro. We need more than that, Nami screamed at him. So what are we gonna do, Nami? Luffy asked. We'll stop by at an island and try to get a better ship and supplies. Then she checked the maps again. Let's see, the next island is called Gecko Island. Gecko Island? Why does that sound familiar? Luffy wondered. Line break. A few hours later, the trio had reached Gecko Island. Before Nami could get the boat on the shore, Luffy had jumped off, eager to see what was on the island. Zoro jumped onto the shore as well. Nice to be back on land, he said as he stretched, then stopped as he heard rustling in the bushes on the hill. We've got company, he said in a dark tone as he reached for his swords. Nami and Luffy looked up at the bushes where Zoro was looking. Luffy jumped when something shot out from the bushes to land in the sand by her feet. Without realizing what they were doing, Zoro and Nami moved so they were standing in front of Luffy. Then the trio heard laughing coming from the bushes. Everyone looked to see a skinny young 17-year-old with a long nose staring down at them. His arms were crossed and he had a confident smile on his face. Many pirate flags appeared next to him from the bushes, bearing the man's Jolly Roger. Wait, is he? Luffy thought, as she recognized him. I am Usopp, leader of this island and fleet of an invincible fleet of pirates. You must be fools to have tried to attack this island. If you don't get back to your boats now, my 80 million men will attack, he yelled out. That's a lie, Nami said with a calm expression. Luffy giggled at his expression. She knows, well I do now, Nami said with a smug smile. Luffy couldn't help but laugh at the face Usopp made. Alright, 80 million may have been a little high, but I have many men on my side. You mean those 3? She knows, 3 children screamed from the bushes, before they took off running on the verge of tears. Hey, you guys come back, Usopp screamed. Luffy was now laughing so hard that she had to lean against Zoro to keep from falling over. Never seen a pirate who uses a slingshot, Nami said as she picked up the lead star that the boy had used. Be quiet, Usopp shouted as he aimed his slingshot at them. Luffy, at the sight of the slingshot, had stopped laughing. Now that you've drawn your weapon, will you use it? She asked in a low tone, giving the older boy a serious look with her hat shadowing her eyes. Usopp just looked at the little girl in fear. Zoro decided to have some fun as well, as he flicked one of his blades from its sheath a bit so the boy could see the glint of the sword. Usopp lost his nerve completely. He dropped the lead star from his slingshot and fell to his knees in defeat. Just as I thought, a true pirate's speech is much more intimidating. That's so cool, Usopp muttered. Luffy looked up at Zoro and they both started laughing. I just repeated what someone else said, Luffy said, still laughing. I stole that line from Shanks. Wait, you mean red-haired Shanks? Usopp asked the girl, leaning over the cliff. Yup. Your father's Usopp, right? She asked. Usopp was so shocked that he fell off the cliff, landing on his face. But then he was up, bombarding the young girl with questions. You know my dad. Line break. Usopp lead Luffy and the others to a restaurant. While he did, Luffy told Usopp how she met his father. He listened as she told him how his father went on and on about his kid. Usopp smiled as he listened to every word. Hey Usopp. Nami said after they had gotten their food. We were hoping to get a better ship. Do you know of anyone who could help us? Sorry, but we don't have anyone here who could help you, Usopp said. He's lying, thought Luffy. Usopp looked at them nervously before grabbing his bag. Gotta go. Eat all you want, it's on me. Then he was gone. Before anyone could say anything, the front door swung open. It was the children from earlier. The Usopp pirates are here, they screamed. Where's our captain, you savages? Luffy studied the younger boys for a second, then she grinned, flashing her canines. That meat was good, she said as she patted her swollen belly. The kids stared at her in horror. Meat? Whispered the boy with the green apple-cut hair. No way, said the onion-cut-haired boy. Did they? The boy with light purple hair said. What have you done? All three shouted. Zoro, picking up what his captain was trying to do, turned towards them and gave a look of pure sadistic joy. If you're looking for your captain, he said, we ate him. Cannibals, they screamed, before promptly fainting. The two troublemakers burst out laughing. In fact, Luffy was laughing so hard that she fell out of her chair and onto the floor. Line break. Luffy and her friends were standing in front of the manor that belonged to Usopp's friend Kaya. Before anyone could stop her, Luffy was on the other side of the fence. Oi, Luffy, UCA, Nami started to say, but the girl was gone. Zoro just sighed. Luffy found Usopp up in a tree talking to Kaya through a window. Usopp ni, Luffy called out, causing the two to jump. Luffy? What are you doing here? Usopp, Kaya asked. Who's this? Hi Kaya ne, Luffy said, smiling. I'm Luffy. Nice to meet you, Kaya said, slightly stunned at being called a big sister. What are you doing here, Luffy? I came here to see Kaya ne. Me? May I ask why? While I was hoping that, what is the meaning of all this? Came another voice. Everyone turned to see a slim man with glasses and slick black hair. Clawhador. Luffy narrowed her eyes, as she sensed something in the man she did not like. Now dragons, and half-dragons, are excellent judges in character. It is nearly impossible to lie to them as they can smell the truth from the lies. And so, the half-dragon's instincts were screaming at her to not trust this human. She wanted nothing more to do than grab both Usopp and Kaya and get them as far away from him as possible. But she stayed silent, watching as an argument broke between Usopp and the butler. Though everything escalated when the man insulted Usopp's father. Shut up! Usopp roared as he slugged the man right in the face, knocking him to the ground. I'm proud that my father is a pirate, being a brave warrior of the sea. I'm very proud of him. Yes, it's true that I'm a liar, but a pirate's blood that flows within me. That kind of honor isn't something that can simply be imitated, for I'm the son of a pirate. Line break. Luffy found Usopp in the woods, looking over a cliff. He was shaking. What's wrong, Usopp ni? Hide, he hissed, pulling the little girl down. She crawled next to him to look over the cliff. On the beach were two men. One was a weird-looking man with purple hair. The other one was the butler from earlier. Unfortunately, they were too far away to hear normally. Good thing I'm not normal, thought Luffy as she used her enhanced hearing to listen in. And she was glad she did. They're gonna kill Kayane, she hissed. What? Usopp yelled. Well, if it isn't Usopp the town liar and the brat friend. Usopp looked back over the cliff to see both men staring at them. Did you hear anything? The butler asked. Usopp opened his mouth to say something, but Luffy beat him to it. I heard everything, Luffy said with a growl, her eyes flashing. I won't let you kill Kayane. Clawhador, or Kuro, eyes narrowed dangerously at the girl before he nodded to his companion, who sighed and stepped forward. Look here children and watch my ring closely. With 1, 2, Django, and you'll fall asleep, he said. 1, hide quick or we're done for, Usopp cried. 2, Usopp dove to the ground covering his head. Django, fortunately, it didn't work on Luffy, however at the same time her narcolepsy kicked in. Usopp watched in horror as the 12-year-old fell off the cliff to land on the rocks below. Line break Zoro and Nami looked up to see Usopp running from the forest. Usopp, over here, Nami called, waving her hand. There was no missing the boy's reluctance at coming over. Where's Luffy? Zoro asked him, his arms crossed over his chest, looking at Usopp expectantly. Well Usopp said. Zoro raised a brow, his steel gaze sharp on the boy. She's at the cliffside relaxing. Zoro and Nami picked up on the lie immediately. Where is Luffy? Zoro asked again. There was an edge in his tone that sent shivers down Usopp's spine. She's dead. What? Line break Luffy was currently waking up from her fit, yawning as she stood up. Luffy, she turned to see Zoro and Nami running towards her. Zoro ni, Nami nay, she said happily, then noticed their worried expressions. What's wrong? Are you okay? Why wouldn't I be? Luffy asked confused. We were told you were dead, but I'm not. Zoro sighed feeling a headache coming. What happened? Luffy's eyes widened as she remembered. Those guys, I heard, they're gonna kill Kayane, the village, oh my god, come on. With that she took off, leaving a dumbfounded Zoro and Nami. Line break by the time Zoro and Nami had located Usopp, Luffy was nowhere to be found. So the three older teens devised a plan where they covered the slope in oil. Unfortunately for them it was the wrong slope. Usopp ran ahead followed by Nami, while Zoro got lost. Luckily he found them just in time to help take out the first wave of pirates that had reached the top of the slope. The fighting continued for some time until Kuro made his appearance. "CC Captain Kuro!" cried out Django. "It's past the appointed time to attack," Kuro said in a calm voice from on top of the hill. "Yet, I find you being held up by children. What the hell is going on?" Zoro, Nami and Usopp watched as Django tried to explain to his former captain. "This is disgraceful. To think that the Black Cat pirate could be beaten by mere children. Have you all gotten that weak?" "Weak?" Two members of the Black Cat pirates, Sham and Butchie, shouted out enraged before they charged at him. But just before they reached him, he vanished. He appeared a second later behind them, this time wearing his cat claws. "I'm giving you all 5 minutes to kill these pests," he said as he pulled back. "If you don't, then you all die by my hand." Kuro. Everyone looked up the slope to see Kaya glaring at the former captain. Next to her stood Luffy, who was dragging a couple of pirates that she'd beaten. Zoro, from where he stood, could sense the young dragon's anger. "Kaya, what are you doing here?" Usopp screamed, terrified for his friend. "Usopp-kun," she said in a quiet voice. "I was attacked by these pirates at the mansion. Luffy-chan saved me. I'm sorry for not trusting you." "Miss Kaya, this is no place for one in your condition," Kuro said in a calm voice. "You should return to the mansion where it's safe." He then turned his attention to Luffy. "I believe I recalled telling you to go play somewhere else, child." Luffy's only response was a growl as her eyes flashed angrily. Kaya turned to Kuro, her eyes blazing in anger. "Mary and Luffy-chan told me everything. I will never hand my fortune over to you." Kuro studied Kaya for a while before he sighed, then he started to sway. "No, Captain Kuro. Not that move," some of the pirates screamed in terror. But it was too late. "Out of the bag attack," he said as he vanished. Sensing an attack, Luffy tackled Kaya to the ground, shielding the older woman. Luffy hissed when she felt the man's cat claws slashing across her back, ripping the young girl's clothing. "Luffy!" Her friends cried out in worry. But Luffy paid them no mind. Instead she focused on Kuro, who was slashing at random things all around them, including his crew. "Don't you care about your own crew?" she yelled enraged. This drew Kuro's attention back to her, slashing her across the chest, but that was the girl's opportunity to grab the butler and slam him into the ground. Kuro glared at the little girl who dared to interfere with his plans, but before he could do anything, she hugged him, trapping his arms and legs. Gumbell, she shouted as she looked him in the eyes, before covering her head in scales and slamming it against the ex-pirate captain's head. She did it. She defeated Kuro. Who are you? I'm Monkey D. Luffy, and I'm gonna be the queen of the pirates, Luffy said, grinning through the pain, before she literally kicked Kuro's unconscious body straight into the deck of the Black Cat's ship. The Black Cats ran with their tails between the legs. Line break. That was very reckless of you, Luffy-chan, Kaya said as she finished bandaging the young girl. Zoro, Nami and Usopp stood to the side. Luffy just shrugged, wincing when she pulled her wounds. I wasn't going to let a pirate who gave up his name and quit the sea hurt my nakama. Kaya just smiled softly at the girl. Well, if you're ready, I have a surprise for you all, she said. A few minutes later, Kaya led them down to the docks. Zoro was carrying Luffy on his back as Kaya said that she didn't want her wounds to open again. Standing on the pier was Mary. Kaya's other butler was waiting for them with a smile on his face and a bandage on his forehead. Cool, Luffy said in awe. Wow, Zoro said. A caravel, Nami cheered. As Mary explained the workings of the ship to Nami, Luffy, despite Kaya's word of caution, was running around on Marigo's deck. Luffy-chan, can I ask you something? Sure, Kaya nay. I was wondering if I could join your crew. Eh, Nami and Zoro said. Luffy just studied Kaya for a moment. Why? Was all she asked. In the past year I've been highly depressed over my parents' deaths. Usopp-kun does so much effort to cheer me up. I can't remain that way anymore. She paused for a moment. I want to see the world. I want to be a nurse. Luffy stared at Kaya a little bit longer, before a large grin appeared on her face. She embraced the older woman in hug. I'd love to have you with us, Kaya nay. At that moment, screams could be heard coming down the hill. Everyone looked to see Usopp rolling down the hill with a very large backpack. What's Usopp ni doing? Luffy asked in confusion. We should stop him, said Zoro. He's heading straight for the ship. Both Zoro and Luffy, despite her injuries, stuck their foot out and stopped him by slamming their feet in his face. Thanks, he muttered. You guys, take care. Why? I'll be a pirate just like you, so we might meet again someday. What are you talking about? Zoro said in annoyance. Hurry up and get on. Huh? We're friends, aren't we? Usopp stood there shocked, before tears ran down his cheeks. I'm the captain, he shouted as he jumped on board the Mary. No, I'm the captain, Luffy yelled angrily as they set sail. It was then Usopp noticed Kaya. Kaya, what are you doing here? Kaya nay's coming too, Luffy said cheerfully. Luffy sat on the figurehead of her new ship, the Mary Go. She loved the fact that she could run around on the deck, though that didn't curb her energy at all. She stood and looked around. Zoro was napping against the mast, Kaya was in the kitchen. Nami was in the room that she had claimed for her map making, and Usopp was painting on a piece of black cloth. Whatcha doin', Usopp ni? She asked. Usopp chuckled before lifting up the cloth. This is a pirate ship, right? Well, a pirate ship need a pirate flag. So what do you think? He asked as he held it up for her. The flag had a skull on it wearing a straw hat. In the background was a crown with a jewel that held the image of a sapphire dragon in it. After Kaya had discovered that the girl's wounds had healed way too quickly, Luffy had told her and Usopp what she was, and that due to her dragon healing factor, her wounds healed faster than the average person's. Surprisingly, they believed her, unlike Nami, who was still adamant about that. In fact, Usopp was ecstatic about the fact that his captain was a dragon. Luffy smiled as she looked at the flag. I like it, but what does it mean exactly? Usopp grinned mischievously as he answered. Well, a queen needs her crown, right? She grinned as she nodded. Yep, I like it very much, she said as she hugged him. Thank you, Usopp ni. Suddenly an idea popped in her head. Hey, Usopp ni, come here, she said as she pulled the older boy with her. We've got a cannon on board, I want you to practice with it. She then pointed to a rock formation up ahead. Try and hit that rock. Okay. Luffy sat on the railing, watching as Usopp fired the cannon a few times at the rock, hitting it every time, After the 5th shot, the formation finally crumbled to pieces, sinking into the ocean. "What's going on?" Zoro asked, having woken up after the 4th shot, walking over to the two, just as Usopp fired for the 6th time. All three watched as cannonballs sailed through the air, over the destroyed rock formation and into the hull of a marine ship. Usopp and Luffy just gaped, while Zoro's sweat dropped. A silent agreement was made between the three to never speak of the incident, and they nonchalantly walked away. Usopp to paint the sails. Zoro went into the kitchen, while Luffy went to go see Nami. "Hey, Nami-ne," Luffy exclaimed as she walked into the chart room. "Do you know where we're heading?" she asked in curiosity. Nami smiled as she answered, "We're heading to Logue Town, there Wheel Santo." She didn't get to finish, as a loud crash was heard from outside. "Come out and fight me, you filthy pirates!" Alarmed, Nami and Luffy rushed onto the deck, to see a tan-skinned man wearing sunglasses, with a "C" tattoo on his left cheek, swinging his sword around like a madman. He smelled like metal and cologne. "Who are you?" Luffy asked. "Shut up," the man yelled as he attacked her. Luffy quickly dodged, but the attack cut off a part of Mary's railing. Before the man could attack again, Nami clocked him upside the head with her bow staff. "Okay, bright guy," she said, glaring down at the pitiful grumbling man, obviously not happy that he attacked her young friend. "What do you think you're doing?" He whimpered when she hit him again, causing Luffy to laugh her head off at his expense. Just then, Zoro and Kaya walked out of the kitchen to see what was going on. "Hey, aren't you Johnny?" he asked as he recognized the defeated intruder. The man, Johnny, sat up to see who had said his name. "Big bro Zoro, so it's Johnny," Zoro said. "Where's Yosaku?" "Yosaku's dying." Line break. A few minutes later they had Yosaku laying on the deck to get a better look at him. The man was extremely pale, his eyes were rolled back and was breathing hard. He was about as tall as Johnny and wore a long green coat with a black shirt. He also wore some sort of headgear. Luffy noted that he had the same scent as Johnny. Kaya knelt next to him. "He was perfectly fine until a while ago," Johnny stated as he continued to cry. "Then he grew pale and started to lose consciousness. I have no clue why." "He has scurvy," Kaya said as she finished examining the ill man. "Usopp-kun, there are some limes in the kitchen. Can you go squeeze them and bring me the juice please?" Usopp nodded and Luffy chirped that she'd help. A few minutes later, they were pouring the lime juice into Yosaku's mouth. "Scurvy?" Johnny asked. It was Nami who answered him. "It's an illness caused by a lack of vitamin C. He should be fine in a few days." "Wow, Nami-ne," Luffy said, impressed. "You're just like Kaya-ne." Suddenly, Yosaku came back to life. He and Johnny started to dance around, singing with joy. "It worked, he's recovered," Johnny yelled happily. "You don't recover that quickly," Nami yelled in fury. Kaya was also displeased. "Mr. Yosaku," she said in a calm voice that held a hint of danger. "Please sit down. You are not fully well yet." Hi, the two men said, sitting down where they were. Luffy giggled at their antics. "So who are you guys?" she asked. Both men looked at the little girl. "Pardon us, lil sis, for not introducing ourselves. We're both bounty hunters." "My name is Johnny." "My name is Yosaku. It's a pleasure to meet you," they said together. "Nice to meet you, Johnny ni, Yosaku ni," Luffy said with a big grin. "I'm Luffy." "I never expected to see you guys out here," Zoro said. "We never expected to see you become a pirate, big bro," Yosaku said. Zoro shrugged, then pointed to Luffy. "The little brat here convinced me." "Hey," Luffy said with a pout. "Mini Zoro ni." Everyone chuckled, before Yosaku suddenly paled and passed out on the deck. "Yosaku!" Johnny exclaimed. Line break. Yosaku was then moved into the lounge to rest. "Let this be a lesson," Kaya said in a firm tone, after she scolded Yosaku. "Yeah," Zoro agreed. "This can happen on a long trip. Especially since we don't have much room for food," Usopp added soberly. "Speaking of which," Nami said, "we should get someone who knows this dietary business." "Dietary?" Luffy asked. "Like a cook, Luffy-chan," Kaya said. Luffy thought for a moment before she said, "Let's get a sea cook." "That's a great idea, Luffy-chan." Johnny began to smile. "If you're looking for a sea cook, I know where you should go." Where? The floating restaurant, Barati, line break. After a series of events and an accident, Luffy found herself standing in front of the head chief and captain of the famous sailing restaurant Barati, Zeph. She had almost blown up the ship with the man with it when she deflected a cannonball that had been fired at her and her crew earlier. The result was a gaping hole in the captain's quarters of the ship. The man was willing to forgive her, with just one problem. I will not be staying here for 1 year. This earned her a whack upside the head. What makes you think you can work off the debt in 5 days? I have to keep moving. If I don't, then they'll catch me, I'll get dragged home and be forced to become some idiot noble's wife, she said, from her place on the floor. Or a slave. No way am I letting that happen if I can help it. Suddenly, the door opened to reveal a man with blonde hair in a black suit. He smelled of cigarettes and food. Oi! What the hell is going on? Sanji, there's a 12-year-old in the room, Luffy said, drawing the attention of both cooks. Sanji blinked before walking over to her and offering a hand. I have no idea why a little lady such as yourself is doing on the floor like that, he said as he helped her stand. So what's going on? Zeph just grumbled before hollering out. None of your business. Just take the brat and go. Sanji just shrugged and walked off, taking Luffy with him. Zeph stared at the closed door for a moment before he sighed. She's just like her mother. Line break. Luffy sat on a crate and out of the way as she watched as Sanji and his fellow chefs went about the kitchen, cooking and preparing various dishes. They had formals as they walked in, before Sanji had her sit on said crate. Sanji left the kitchen, but was never gone for too long, and occasionally dropped a fruit of some sort into her hands as he passed by. Suddenly, Nami and Kaya walked in, catching Sanji's eye. Oh, what lovely beauties you are. He stopped suddenly as he remembered something. One of the cooks, Patty, busted out laughing at the sudden behavior change. Ha 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 ha. What's this? Sanji's actually behaving and not acting like a purr. He didn't get to finish as Sanji slapped his hand over the man's mouth, earning him several strange looks from the surrounding cooks. Sanji simply gestured to the little girl, who was paying attention to her current snack. They all nodded in understanding and went back to cooking as the two women walked over to Luffy. So how did it go, Luffy-chan? Kaya asked. Luffy swung her feet as she offered both women an orange before answering. It went well, despite the fact I got clocked in the head for saying that I'd work in only 5 days. This got laughs from everyone present. I found us a cook though. Really now? Nami asked. And who would that be? Luffy just grinned before calling out, Sanji ni. Sanji came over, giving the little girl a strange look the whole time. Do I want to know you called me over here? I want you to join my crew? Huh? I'm gonna be the queen of the pirates, and I need a cook? Sanji grinned slightly before giving her a pat on the head. Aren't you a little young to be a pirate? He asked. He wasn't picking on her. No, he was just curious as to why a child was sailing to become a pirate. I can't wait till I'm older. I don't have time to wait anymore. It's either I become a pirate now, or get married off to some egotistical rich brat, who I know for a fact I'm going to clobber sooner or later. Or be sold as a slave, once they find out what I am. Everyone laughed. No one present would put it past her to do just as she said she would. Sanji was about to answer when the sound of a gun going off could be heard from the dining area. Line break. In the dining area, something was off as there were several Marines in the room. Luffy hid behind Sanji so she wouldn't be seen by the Marines. After a quick glance, she had located the rest of her crew, along with Johnny and Yosaku, sitting at the other end of the dining area. Full body, sir, one of the Marines said to a man wearing a white pinstripe suit. He had short pink hair, with metal knuckles on his hands. The captive escaped. Suddenly a man appeared behind them looking half-starved and near death, stumbling slightly before finally collapsing. Luffy studied the man for a moment, before a small smile appeared on her face. Please, give me some food. I don't care if it's table scraps, just please, said the man, begging slightly. Suddenly Patty appeared in front of the man, looking very irritated. Do you have money? No money, no food, he stated simply. The man was about to answer when Luffy walked up to him and offered him an unpeeled orange that she'd snagged from the kitchen. Here you go, Ni-chan, she said, offering him a small smile. Thank you, the man said, surprised at the young girl's actions. She nodded before turning to walk back over to Sanji. She had taken only 2 steps when the Marine, full body, roughly grabbed her arm. She tried to tug out of his grip, but he wouldn't let go. "Wait a minute. Where do you think you're going, eh?" he said in a dark tone. "Your grandfather's very worried about you, you know." She did not like this man. He reminded her of the slavers. "Let go," she cried out as she struggled in the man's grip. Sanji watched as the young girl walked over to give the starving man an unpeeled orange. He was shocked yet grateful at her actions. His eyes narrowed dangerously when the shitty Marine grabbed her arm. He watched as she suddenly stiffened. Fear flashed through her eyes. Sanji could have sworn they changed to gold. "Let go," she cried out, as she struggled in the Marine's grip. A flash of green caught his eye. He glanced over to see a green-haired slowly making his way over. The man's eyes were narrowed dangerously. But Sanji beat him to it. He quickly walked over to kick the Marine in the head, forcing him to let her go. She quickly darted behind him, before sticking her tongue out at the Marine. But Sanji could feel her shaking. "How about you keep your hands off my little sister?" he stated. There was a dangerous edge in his voice. That shitty Marine had more than just overstepped his boundaries. The rest of the Marines quickly dragged their leader out of the restaurant and back to their ship, not wanting to suffer from the same fate. "You okay, Luffy-chan?" he asked as he looked at her. She nodded. "Thank you, Sanji ni." Line break. Luffy walked out of the restaurant with a bowl of fruit that she'd snuck out from the kitchen, with Sanji's help. He still hadn't answered her on whether he was going to join or not. She gave a gentle smile, as she found who she was looking for, the starving man from earlier. She walked over and introduced herself as she placed the bowl in front of him. "Hi, Ni-chan. What's your name?" she asked. "My name's Jin," he said. "Thank you for the fruit." She nodded. "I'm gonna take a guess and say that you ran away from home when you weren't supposed to," he stated, stuffing an apple down his mouth. "Only choke a little, and then swallow it down when Luffy hit him on the back." "Hee hee, yep, I'm gonna be the queen of the pirates, but to do that I need to have a good crew. There are 2 people here who I want to recruit. But one hasn't said yes yet," she stated with a smile. Jin nearly choked when she said the queen of the pirates. "Unless you have a death wish, kid, I would advise against that, no offense, but the Grand Line is no place for someone your age." "I don't care," Jin, as well as Sanji, who had just come up to the pair, stared at the girl in shock. "Being the queen of the pirates is my dream. I'm gonna fight for my dream, and I'm not gonna let anyone stop me. If I die young, at least I died fighting for my dream." "So, Jin ni, wanna be a part of my crew?" Jin shook his head, as Sanji finally decided to speak up. "We have a small boat that's ready to leave when you're ready," he said, as Luffy stood up and ran back inside, giving Jin a small wave before she disappeared from sight. Jin couldn't help but laugh. "A little ball of energy, isn't she?" he said, before nodding to Sanji. "Thanks for the food. I won't forget this kindness that you've showed me today." He then got in the boat and set sail. Luffy was again sitting in the kitchen while her nakama ate in the dining room. Sanji had allowed her to help a little, peeling potatoes in between the fruits she was eating that he had given her, keep her occupied. He couldn't help but notice that the girl seemed moodier than she had been yesterday. He shrugged it off as a child thing. The true reason for the child's moodiness was that her body was wanting to shift. It had been a while since her last full shift. The half-dragon could only go so long without fully shifting into her dragon form. Otherwise she'd start to experience a feeling of being trapped by her surroundings. Unlike small spaces or cages that just made her feel trapped, this feeling was one of being trapped by her own skin. It'd make her very irritable and a nightmare to be around for any length of time. Her brothers had learned that the hard way. She would always try holding off the full shift with a partial one. That helped to ease the feeling of being trapped for a while. Unfortunately, there was nowhere on the Barati or on the merry-go where she could shift fully or partial, not with as many people there were at Barati or with their guests, Johnny, Yosaku, on the merry. She would only tell those in her crew on what she was. Though she had asked the duo bounty hunters if they wanted to join, they had yet to respond. Suddenly a lot of screaming and shouting could be heard from the dining area. "What the hell?" Sanji called as he ran into the room followed by Luffy. "It's Don Krieg's pirate ship." Sure enough, when they rushed to look out of the windows, they saw a huge galleon growing closer and closer to the Barati. A skull with 2 hourglasses at its side. There's no doubt about it, That's Krieg's flag. Why is he here? Talk about a huge ship, Luffy said from her spot next to Sanji. It was indeed a huge ship. It was the biggest ship she'd seen, and it was even bigger than Shanks' ship, the Red Force. But then she noticed something else. That ship is in complete shambles, someone yelled out. The ship's sails were torn, not even half the sails were there. The wood and paint were broken and scraped off, a large chunk of the figurehead was missing. Suddenly, the doors flew open, revealing a large weaker figure being supported by a much smaller figure, who Luffy recognized as Jin. The larger man, Don Krieg, looked up at everyone with a frightening stare. Sorry for intruding, but could I have some water and food? His voice was deep and shaky, sending shivers down the young dragon's spine. It sounded inhuman. It didn't help when the man's scent hit her. The man smelled of lies. Unlike Usopp, who used his lies for stories to entertain the energetic girl, this man's lies smelled like hurtful lies. She took a deep breath to force back her other half. The itchiness of her skin got worse. Sanji started a little when something bumped his legs. He looked down to see Luffy hiding behind him, her eyes never leaving the other pirate's face. Her expression unreadable. He wanted to ask the kid what was wrong, but Krieg had started again. If it's money you want, I've got plenty, he said, before he fell on the floor with a loud thud. Please, I'm begging you, give him some food and water, Jin cried as he tried to pull his captain back up. Laughter came from the Patty and another chef, Carne, as they studied the pirate. So this is what the infamous Don Krieg looks like. Luffy watched as Sanji walked into the kitchen. She followed after him to watch as he began to pull out various ingredients and mixing them together on the stove. Luffy smiled and ran back to the dining area, where she quickly made her way over to her friends, who sat at the far end of the room. I won't do anything. If you give me food, I promise I'll withdraw from here. Luffy let out a quiet growl, before she saw Sanji re-enter the room with a plate filled with food and a bottle of wine. She watched as he walked closer to Jin and gave him the plate and wine. Here, Jin. Give this to him, he said compassionately. This did not sit well with the other chefs. Sanji. What the hell are you doing? Take back that food this instant. Don't you know who that man is? The ruler of the East Blue, the king of deceptions. Suddenly, Luffy stiffened. Sanji ni, she shouted, duck. Sanji looked confused but did it anyway, leaving Krieg to swing his arm over him harmlessly. Nice reflexes, cook. Krieg said. Don Krieg. Why'd you attack him? Jin asked in shock, before crying out in pain when Krieg hurt his shoulder. Krieg ignored him as he eyed the restaurant. This is a nice ship. I'll take it. My old ship is on the verge of sinking, so I'll need a new one. As for you cooks, get my men some food. I've got 100 men starving over there, so hop to it. Sanji started walking back towards the kitchen. Oi, Sanji, what are you doing? One of the chefs cried. Heading to the kitchen, he said without glancing back. I've got 100 meals to make. He only took a few more steps, before he was knocked down by an angry Patty. Oi, Patty, cried Carne. Take him out here, Patty ordered. Before anyone could do anything, Zeph appeared with a big bag over his shoulders. Here is 100 meals worth of food, he said as he tossed the bag to Krieg. Take it and leave. Line break. As soon as Krieg had left with the bag of food, Luffy was by Jin's side, followed by Kaya. Jin ni. Jin looked at the little girl, guilt written all over his face. I'm so sorry, kid, he said, I didn't think he'd do this. Luffy shook her head. It's not your fault, Jin ni. But, she's right. You've got no reason to be apologize, Zeph said, shocking the cooks. Every cook here did what they thought was right. This caused the other chefs to ask why Zeph was taking Sanji's side. After they said that it was Sanji's fault that Krieg was after the ship, Zeph told them that they didn't know the pain of starving. After stating that if they were going to keep complaining then they could leave. It was silent for a moment before every chefs claimed that they'd stay and fight for their home. Hey, Jin ni, what happened? Luffy asked, gaining everyone's attention. On the 7th day of our voyage, we came across of a man, who sank our ships one by one. Jin just stared at the floor as he told them what happened. His eyes, sharp and murderous, were like that of a hawk. Luffy's eyes widened a little at this. Eyes like a hawk? That sounds like Hawkeye Mihawk. She heard Zoro gasp from behind her. It that someone you know Zoro-san? Kaya asked as she finished helping Jin. He's the man I've been searching for, was all Zoro said. Hey, are we really going to the Grand Line? Usopp asked panicking. Of course we are, Usopp ni, Luffy said, as she stood, cracking her knuckles before walking toward the galleon. Hey, where are you going, kid? Jin asked. To fight Krieg, she said. Are you crazy? Nearly everyone shouted, forcing her to cover her ears. You're just a little kid, Patty said. You're asking for a death wish, kid, another chef cried. Have you seen how strong Don Krieg is? Yelled Jin. I have, and I don't care, she said. He insulted my crew, and hurt Jin ni, besides he hasn't seen how strong I am. Everyone just stared at the girl in shock. She really is just like her mother, Zeph thought as he smirked at Luffy's confidence. Then he said, one of you brats open up the fin. Huh? Why? Because if this brat is anything like her mother. Now this caught Luffy's attention. You knew Mama? Zeph nodded. I met her and your uncle when I was still a pirate. This caused her to stiffen. Don't worry, little dragon, Zeph said so only she could hear. I won't tell. Everyone looked back and forth between the two, confusion on their faces. Before anything else could be said, a huge roar came from Krieg's men on the galleon. Luffy dashed outside, just as Krieg ordered his men to attack. But before the men could comply with the order, the entire galleon was suddenly split downst in the sea. While everyone was crying out, and basically giving Luffy a headache with all the screaming, Johnny and Yosaku came running and soaking wet. What's wrong? Zoro asked. Why are you wet, big bro? Johnny yelled. Big sis Nami, she took the ship and treasure and sailed away, Yosaku yelled. She did what? Zoro, Usopp yelled. Why would Nami-chan take the Mary? Kaya asked. That damn witch, Zoro yelled, punching the wall. She just had to make the situation worse. That heartless thief, Usopp yelled in anger. Wait, Luffy called out as she searched over the sea to try and get a glimpse of the ship. I see the Mary go. She turned towards Johnny and Yosaku. Johnny ni, Yosaku ni, where is your boat? We have it moored to the restaurant, Yosaku said at once. Zoro ni, Usopp ni, Kaya ne, Luffy ordered turning to them all. Take their ship and go get Nami ne. Let her keep the ship. Zoro stated. That woman's way more trouble than she's worth. No, Nami ne's the only one I'll accept as the ship's navigator, Luffy said firmly. Zoro sighed. Fine, I'll do it. The ship's ready, big bro Zoro, Johnny and Yosaku yelled. What about you, Luffy-chan? Kaya asked. I'll stay here, Luffy said. Besides there's two people that have yet to answer my question. Zoro studied her for a moment. There was no missing the slight tremors of her body, nor the golden flash of her eyes. Well, just be over there, it's that man. He came back, Don Krieg, that's the man who destroyed our fleet. That got everyone's attention. Looking past the ruined ship, everyone could see the form of a single man sitting on a small raft that was lit by several candles with green flames. The man was tall and lean with a short beard, mustache. He wore a wide-brimmed black hat decorated with a large plume, and a long open black coat with no shirt. There was a small golden cross-shaped necklace around his neck. And on his back was a large black blade. But underneath his hat, they could see his eyes, cold yellow eyes that resembled a hawk's. Some of them shivered at the sight, while a big smile appeared on Luffy's face. That psycho followed us here. Why, you monster? One of the Krieg pirates yelled. Why are you doing this to us? What the hell did we ever do to you? Mihawk glanced at him in uninterest. Just killing time. You bastard, yelled a pirate as he aimed his pistols and shot at Mihawk. With one graceful motion of his sword, Mihawk deflected the bullets with barely twisting his wrists. What? I missed, the pirate stuttered in shock. No, said Zoro from behind the pirate. He redirected the bullets with just the tip of his sword. Then to Mihawk he said, I've never seen such graceful movements. There's no strength in swordplay based on force, Mihawk said neutrally. So, this ship was split by that sword as well? Of course. It's clear now, you're the strongest, Zoro said excitedly. I set sail for only one reason, to meet you. And what is your goal? To be the best, Mihawk smirked. How foolish. Hey, Things are getting worse. Luffy, Usopp yelled at his captain. The Mary is about gone from our sights. But Luffy paid no attention to Usopp as she watched as Zoro challenged Mihawk to a duel. At the word, Luffy, an odd expression appeared on Mihawk's face. Turning his attention from Zoro, Mihawk looked around. Golden hawk-like eyes met golden-tinted brown eyes. From where she stood, she could pick up the scent of metal, wine, and hawks. I was not expecting to see you here, little dragon, Mihawk said as he stared at Luffy, who despite her earlier excitement at seeing him, found a sudden interest in the ocean. Hee, she said. Hi Uncle Haki. Silence, then. Uncle Hawkie. Line break, Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy cringed at her uncle's use of her full name. Care to tell me why you're here? Mihawk asked from his place on the raft. Luffy crossed her arms and looked everywhere but at Mihawk, refusing to answer. Meanwhile, everyone was still getting over the shock of hearing the young girl refer to Mihawk as Uncle Haki. Usopp was in shock. His jaw almost crashed through the floorboards. The duo swordsmen were in a similar state. Same could be said for most present. The others, Kaya, Zeph looked stunned. The worst off were Zoro, Jin, Krieg, and the Krieg pirates. Mihawk studied the girl for a moment, before he sighed and turned to a still stunned Zoro. Very well, he said to Zoro, who snapped out of his daze. If you want a duel, then I shall give you one. With one graceful jump, Mihawk appeared on the remains of Krieg's ship. Though I must ask you, why have you challenged me? Could it be your courage, or simply your ignorance? My ambition drives me, Zoro declared, and a promise to my fallen friend. No one can beat Big Bro, yelled Yosaku. Bro, do your best, Johnny encouraged. Luffy said nothing. Her arms remained crossed. She knew how this fight would end. She just prayed that her uncle wouldn't kill her first mate. She watched as her uncle casually grabbed the cross he had around his neck. He pulled out a tiny blade that was smaller than a butter knife from the cross. What's the meaning of this? Zoro demanded, his eyes narrowed. Unlike some idiots, I do not use a cannon to kill a fly. Although you seem skilled, that does not mean much to me. The East Blue is the weakest of the seas, Mihawk stated, giving Zoro an apologetic look. Unfortunately, I do not carry any blades smaller than this one. Don't mock me, Zoro said pissed, as he charged Mihawk. Onigiri, he yelled. With barely even trying, Mihawk caught all three swords in mid-slash, freezing Zoro's movements. What the? Zoro exclaimed in shock. Zoro ni, Luffy yelled worriedly, but stayed where she was. The tremors grew. Bro's Onigiri was stopped, yelled Johnny and Yosaku in disbelief. Zoro couldn't move at all as Mihawk held him in place. His eyes were wide in disbelief. With a flick of his wrist, Mihawk pushed Zoro back, causing him to fall onto the deck remains with a thud. You can't possibly be this much better than me. Mihawk gave him an impassive look. Throwing skill and technique to the wind, Zoro got back up and started to attack Mihawk wildly. Such ferocious swordplay. Mihawk must as he blocked another slash from Zoro. This ticked Zoro off further, becoming more violent and reckless. He crashed upon the deck when Mihawk moved aside from his attack. The impassive look remained as he stared down at Zoro. What is it then? What weight do you carry on your shoulders? Speak up, weakling. No, I won't lose. I refuse to be defeated, Zoro growled as he moved to attack again. Tiger trap. Mihawk, done with toying with Zoro, thrusted the tiny blade into Zoro's chest when he got close. Everyone gasped in horror and shock. Big Bro, Johnny and Yosaku screamed as they attempted to join the battle to save their friend. Do not interfere, Luffy growled as she grabbed them. It was clear that she was not happy either, her entire frame was shaking. Kaya and Usopp noticed this, and looked at each other worried. You are defeated, yet you do not step back. Do you wish for this blade to pierce your heart? Mihawk asked. I don't know, Zoro answered honestly. But if I step back, then all of the oaths, promises I made until now will all go to waste and I'll never be able to return before you again. That is why I can't step back. Even if it means death? Mihawk questioned. Death would be better, Zoro said with no hesitation. Mihawk glared at Zoro for a moment. There was a shine in his eyes that told Luffy that Zoro had earned just a little respect from her uncle. Tell me your name, boy. Mihawk asked as he pulled out his sword. I am Roronoa Zoro. I will remember it, Mihawk said as he grabbed his true sword. It's been a while since I've seen such a strong will. As a reward, I will wield this black sword to end your life. I appreciate the gesture. With all words done, the two swords impact. Everyone watched as two of Zoro's swords shattered. Zoro carefully sheathed the only one that survived. Then he turned to face Mihawk, arms spread wide. What or why? Wounds on the back are a swordsman's shame, Zoro said grinning. Splendid. Mihawk said as he brought his black blade down, creating a wound that stretched from his left shoulder to his right hip. The impact from the strike sent him tumbling into the sea. Zoro ni! Luffy screamed in horror, before she launched herself at her uncle, scales appearing on her face and arms. Damn it Haki! She growled with rage. Mihawk only had enough time to raise his blade again to block his enraged niece's claws. I let him live. That was enough to calm her down a bit. She spun to see Zoro being fished out of the water by Johnny and Yosaku. Kaya was by his side in an instant to treat his wound. Zoro ni! It's still far too early for you to die, Mihawk said as he faced Zoro. My name is Hawkeye Mihawk. You are strong, but there is still much for you to learn. Find your true self, and become stronger. No matter how long it takes, I will await you in your strongest form. Until that day you must hone your skills. Then, seek me out. Surpass this sword, Roronoa Zoro. Once he was finished with Zoro, he turned his attention towards Luffy. Now, little dragon, he said quietly, so that no one could hear. Care to tell me why you're here? Luffy looked at her feet a moment, before meeting her uncle's gaze. It was no longer safe for me to remain at dawn. Someone found out what I was. Mihawk's gaze darkened at this, though I don't think they knew who my parents are. Mihawk relaxed slightly. So what is your goal? He asked a little louder. To be the queen of the pirates, she answered with no hesitation. Mihawk smirked at his niece. That will be a harder goal than surpassing me. I don't care, she said defiantly, sticking her tongue out at him. I'm going to become one anyway. Zoro-san, please don't move, Kaya cried out, gaining Luffy's attention. Luffy, can you hear me? Zoro ni, I'm sorry for disappointing you, he said in a strained voice. If I don't become the greatest swordsman in the world, it would be a disgrace to you, right? I've let you down, please forgive me. I swear, from this moment forward, that I will never lose again, he declared. Until I defeat him and become the greatest, I will never be defeated. Any problems with that, Pirate Queen? A huge smile appeared on her face. None. Mihawk smiled. You make a good team. I hope to see you again someday. Line break, hey, Mihawk, Krieg shouted with a cocky grin. I thought you were here for my head. It crossed my mind, Mihawk said without looking at him. But I've had enough fun for one day. I'm going home to rest. Funny, Krieg said, cracking his neck. I haven't had enough. Die. Luffy just shook her head at the man's stupidity as her uncle deflected the attack. Missed, Krieg said, but by then Mihawk was gone. Usopp ni, Kaya ne, Luffy shouted, go on ahead. You got it, Usopp yelled. Be careful Luffy-chan, Kaya said as she continued to treat Zoro. Got it, Luffy said, as her friends left. Zeph looked at the girl. Not going with your friends, girl? I've got unfinished business here. So, you aim to be the queen of the pirates? That's right? I've seen many pirates in my day, Zeph said with a smirk. But you are the first to state your desire with no doubt. Especially for one so young. Men, attack! Krieg shouted. His men charged forward. Gum gum giant scythe! Luffy cried out as she flung them back. That's very rude of you, misters, she said from her spot on the mast. Attacking the ones who fed you. One of you open up the fins, Zeph ordered. The chefs quickly followed his order, and soon there was a giant wooden deck for them to fight on. We won't let you pirates take this restaurant, Sanji shouted as the other chefs cheered behind him. You won't even set foot inside. Actually, this is perfect, Krieg sneered. I don't want any damage to come to my new ship. Suddenly another man came out of the water. He was quite tall, wearing large iron shields. I am Pearl, the invincible shield, he said, as Sanji kicked away a pirate that had attempted to steal Patty's knife. A chef's knife is his soul. Sanji said as he handed the knife back to Patty. The pirates then rushed Sanji, but he quickly took care of them with his kicking fighting style. What kind of person uses kicks? Pearl mocked. A chef is nothing without his hands, so I'll use my feet to deal with you, Sanji said as he raised a leg. Is that so? I fought 61 battles and won each and every single one of them without a scratch. Not one drop of my blood had been spilled. He didn't get to finish as Luffy, who'd been knocked off of the mast by Krieg, slammed into the back of his head, causing Pearl to hit one of his arm shields. A trickle of blood came from his nose. Are you okay, Luffy-chan? Sanji asked as he helped her up. Yup, she said. What's wrong with him? Sanji turned his attention back to Pearl, who was staring horrified at his own blood. Blood, my blood, he whispered. These guys are nuts. Luffy's eyes widened as she caught the scent of fire. She quickly tackled Sanji out of the way as Pearl erupted into flames. A wall of fire surrounded him, keeping others away. Sanji stared at the wall. Had they been standing where they had been, they would have been burned. How did you? He asked the little girl. I'll tell you if you join my crew. Sanji couldn't help but laugh as he shook his head. Pearl, you idiot. Put out your fire, cried several of Krieg's men as they ran around trying to put out the fire on their limbs. Suddenly, Sanji jumped over the wall of fire, spooking Pearl. What? But this fire scares everyone away, Pearl cried. I couldn't be a cook if I was afraid of fire, Sanji said with a smirk. Pearl, calm down, Krieg yelled. You're gonna burn my new ship. Pearl then threw some fire pearls towards the Barati, but they were snuffed out when Zeph used his peg leg to kick up a wind at them. Angered at his subordinate, Krieg pulled out a ball and chain and flung it at Pearl and Sanji to get Pearl's flames to die down. Thankfully, Luffy jumped towards it and, after covering her hands with scales, knocked it away, hitting another mast, which came down on Pearl's head, knocking him and the flames out. That was close. Luffy said, Are you okay, Sanji-ni? I should be asking you that, Sanji said, before he noticed the scales. Want to tell me what you are? Before she could say anything, they both heard Zeph grunt and looked to see him pinned to the floor with Jin pointing a gun at his head. Move and he dies. Luffy stared into his eyes. They were filled with regret, like he didn't want to do this. Jin-ni, sorry kid, he said, but you should have left. Jin, Sanji said. Point the gun at me. Leave Zeph out of this. I can't do that, Sanji. Sorry, but this is how we fight. Precisely, said Pearl as he woke up from his nap. He looked at Sanji and Luffy. Now, I think it's time for a little payback. From the destroyed galleon, Krieg was laughing at the scene before him. Jin, if they fight back, kill Zeph, yelled Krieg. Jin nodded, but never took his eyes off Sanji and Luffy. Pearl was about to attack Sanji, but Luffy pushed him out of the way. It doesn't matter which one I hit. You're both going to die, he yelled as he brought his shield hand down on the girl's head. Luffy-chan. Sanji cried out in panic. Then to everyone's shock, the shield shattered. The pieces fell away revealing an unharmed Luffy. What? The Krieg pirates yelled. What the hell is she? My shield. Pearl screamed. Then he glared at the little girl who dared to break his precious shield. You monster, he shouted as he hit her with his other shield, only for it to shatter as well. Krieg was grinding his teeth, while Jin just looked on in shock. That kid's been lifting a finger, Jin thought. Jin? Blow Zeph's head off right now, Krieg yelled. But Dawn, they gave us food when we were starving. I said kill him, Krieg bellowed. Jin, aim that gun at me, Sanji shouted. Enough! Luffy roared as she raised her leg to the sky, then brought it down to shatter the fin. Gum Gum battle axe. Line break. Everyone just stared at what the 12-year-old had done. The fin was now shattered, the pieces floating in the sea. Krieg was the first to react. What are you waiting for, Jin? Kill Zeph already. Jin, however, seemed reluctant. Sanji stormed up to the little girl. What are you doing? He yelled at her. Why are you angry? All I did was break the fin. But I'll sink the restaurant next. Whaat. No way. You will not sink this restaurant, Sanji yelled. I owe everything to her, it's all Zeph has left. She then looked him in the eyes. So you're gonna die for a dumb restaurant? You really are stupid. How is getting yourself killed repaying him for all he's done? I know for a fact that Zef G didn't save you so you could get yourself killed. He saved you so you could do something with your life, not die like a fool. I've had enough of you too, Pearl screamed as he set himself on fire again. But before he could attack, Jin appeared in front of him and smashed his shields, taking him out for good. Move it, Pearl, Jin said as Pearl fell to the deck. You traitor! What is the meaning of this? Krieg bellowed. First you disobey my orders, and now you're taking out your own shipmates. Have you lost your mind? I'm sorry, Don, Jin said, but these two saved my life. The least I can do is take them out myself. I owe them that much. Krieg stared at Jin before he sat down on the wreckage of his ship. Fine, he said, just kill the cook and the brat. Look, Sanji, I didn't want to damage the ship, but it's too late for that. All I'm doing is following orders. I see, Sanji said as he lit a cigarette, but if you want this restaurant, then you're gonna have to kill me first. Sounds fair, Jin said, it'll be an honor, my friend. Then he looked at Luffy. You too, kid. Luffy gave a mischievous grin as she crossed her arms. What makes you think you can kill me? Jin narrowed his eyes as the Krieg pirates began to yell insults at the girl. How dare you talk like that to us, you brat, crush her into dust, Jin. Show her why the Krieg pirates are the strongest in the East Blue. Luffy just looked at them. That's only because you outnumber everyone else, she said. Silence, they look angry, Sanji said with a smirk. But it's true, Luffy said. How are they getting stronger if all they do is add more crewmates? Jin raised an eyebrow at this, while the other Krieg pirates started rushing in to kill the little brat. Stop right there, Krieg shouted. Jin, kill them. Yes, Don, Jin said, before he began to swing his tonfa around as he and Sanji began to fight. He missed, smashing into the deck as Sanji dodged, while aiming a kick at his side. Jin dodged, then slammed the tonfa down on Sanji's neck, pinning him to the floor. But Sanji kicked his way free, kicking Jin in the head. Jin held onto his weapon as he smashed it into Sanji's side. Sanji was flung away, but got back to his feet. They lunged at each other again. Jin missed as Sanji did a handstand and kicked Jin in the back, who stumbled but held his ground. Then he charged, aiming for Sanji's head. Sanji jumped back, only to be nailed in the ribs by the other. Finish him off, Jin, Krieg ordered. The fight continued for a bit longer, before Jin was kicked in the back of the head. Jin's head smashed into the deck, blood spurted from his mouth. He moved to push himself back up, only to collapse onto the deck. His weapons fell from his hands. I'm sorry, Don, he thought. But I can't do it, I can't kill him. No way. Jin, lost. What are you doing, Jin? Bellowed Krieg. Losing to a cook. How dare you humiliate us like this? Come on, Jin. Get up, you can't lose to that cook. You're second in command of the Krieg pirates. How could one guy beat you? Krieg shouted. Well, what do you have to say for yourself? To everyone's surprise, Jin began to laugh. What's so funny, Jin? The laughter died down. I'm sorry, it's just that I asked myself the same question. When Hawkeye destroyed the fleet, I asked myself, how could one man beat all of us? I didn't understand it at first, but it's all so clear. What's so clear? Everything, Jin said as he struggled to sit up. Why we lost as bad as we did to Hawkeye, or why that kid doesn't fear us, he said, pointed to Luffy, and why Sanji beat me. What was it then, Jin ni? Luffy asked, gently. Because we're weak, said Jin. How dare you, Krieg shouted so loud, that Luffy had to cover her ears. What exactly makes us weak? Then, tell me, Jin. It's like the kid said. How are we getting stronger if all we do is add more crew members? The answer. We're not. If we keep adding members, then the ones we have won't get any stronger, right, kid? She. That's right, Jin ni, Luffy said, with her hands still over her ears. Silence. Did you forget who we are? We're the Krieg pirates. All we need is that logbook of Zefson. No, said Jin, interrupting Krieg. So what? Even with that logbook nothing will change. All we know is what's out there. We'd still be too weak to do anything about it. You little son of a bitch, Krieg said. If you've lost faith in us, then you're no longer my chief commander anymore. Pirates, out of the way. He reached up to take off one of his shoulder plates. The mouth opened as he aimed it at them. Luffy stiffened when she caught the scent of poison. No, Jin gasped. Not the gas, he's gonna use the MH5. Every Krieg pirate then fished out masks and placed them on their faces. Drop that mask, Jin! Krieg shouted when Jin pulled out his own. You're not one of us anymore. The only thing that matters in battle is who wins, even if more have to die. Poison gas is just a means to an end. No one will hear you complain if you're dead. No you don't, Luffy said as she ran down the broken mast towards Krieg. Her entire form was shaking. You're wasting your time, brat, Krieg yelled as he punched the mast, but she just jumped into the air to deliver a kick to his face, causing him to stagger. Jin Ni, she screamed. Don't listen to him, someone like him isn't worth dying for. Jin looked at the little girl with a blank expression before he looked back at his mask. I said drop that mask, Jin, Krieg shouted as he tried to hit Luffy, but thanks to her size she was able to evade the blow to kick him in his stomach. Up, Jin mumbled. Are you defying me? I said shut up, Jin roared as he looked up. There was a fire in his eyes as he glared at Krieg. Up until now, I've obeyed every order without question. I respected and admired you because I thought you were the strongest. But now, I see I was wrong. The other pirates stared wide-eyed at Jin as he narrowed his eyes at Krieg. If all you think it take is information and a lot of shipmates, then all you'll be doing is leading us to a slaughter. Then I'm through listening to a complete dumbass like you, he roared as he put his mask on. Thinking quickly, Luffy grabbed a mask from one of the pirates. Sanji ni, she yelled as she threw it to the chef, who caught it and placed it on, just as Krieg fired the bomb. Thanks, but what about you? She gave Sanji and Jin a small smile. Don't worry Sanji ni, Jin ni, I'll be fine. Jin's and Sanji's eyes widened in horror. Just as the bomb exploded, filling the air with purple gas. Luffy, kid. It took several minutes for the gas to clear completely, and when it did, none save Zeph were prepared for what they saw. There stood Luffy in her partial form. Her sapphire-scaled wings were wrapped around her acting as a shield. When she unfurled them, everyone could see the sapphire scales that covered every inch over her body. Her dragoned forth, as her golden eyes flashed. It was Krieg who recovered first. What the hell are you? This was followed by several panicked cries from the other Krieg pirates. She's a freak, blue demon, she's an ancient. Everyone turned to see Zeph. An ancient? What's that? Sanji couldn't help but ask. Zeph looked to Luffy, who nodded. Ancients are beings from the Void Century. Not much is known about them. Though it is said that dragon ancients are the most powerful of their kind. I've only known of one other ancient. There was silence as everyone took in what he had said. Suddenly, there was a dark laugh that filled the air. Everyone turned to look at Krieg, who was staring at Luffy. There was an insane look in his eyes. Luffy let out a growl when he took a step toward her. Most powerful of their kind, eh? He said. If that's the case, then I don't need a crew if I can train it to fight for me. Sanji and Jin glared at Krieg, as the growl grew louder. Apparently, Luffy did not like being called an it. Before anyone could react, she appeared in front of him and with a quick thrust upward, Krieg was sent flying into the air. She jumped and delivered a kick that shattered his armor, knocking the man out in the process. Anyone else? She asked of the remaining pirates in the water. They were gone before she could even blink. She sighed, as her dragon features vanished. Then she began to sway, before collapsing into the sea. Oi! Zeph called to Jin and Sanji. One of you brats better go get her. I doubt she'll be able to do much until that poison wears off. Why the hell didn't you mention that sooner, shitty geezer? Sanji yelled as he dove into the water. Line break. Luffy woke up a few hours later, sick with fever as her dragon's blood continued to expel the poison from her body. She was wearing dry clothing, and a wet cloth over her forehead. A quick glance showed that she was alone, but still on the Barati if the smell was anything to go by. Gritting her teeth, she forced herself to stand up. The wet cloth fell to the ground as she staggered to the door. When she stepped out of the room, she noticed that the chefs were busy fixing the ship. You should go lay back down, said a voice to her right. She looked to see Jin staring down at her, his wounds were bandaged. An idea popped into her head. Hey, Jin-ni, she asked. What are you going to do now? He shrugged. Don't know yet. If that's the case, she said with a big grin. why don't you join my crew? You still plan on being a pirate, right? You're asking me to join, after all I did to you? You didn't do anything, Jin Ni, she said, it was all Krieg. But, you're strong and I need crewmates, so what do you say? Jin just stared at the girl for a moment, before a smile crept onto his face. You know what, kid? Jin asked as he looked at her. Why not, what have I got to lose? Yeah, Luffy cheered, before her legs gave out. Thankfully Jin caught her. Then a large rumbling noise echoed through the room. Hee hee, she said. I'm hungry. It was then Sanji appeared, with a plate of food in his hands. Well then, he said. Let's get you to a table, Yahoo! Luffy cried as she launched herself across the room to a table. Jin and Sanji just looked at each other before they busted into laughter. Line break after eating her fill, her fever almost gone. Luffy and Jin went to locate Sanji. They found him staring out into the sea from a balcony. Hey Sanji ni. No, I'm not leaving, He said without looking. Humph. Luffy pouted. Hey, kid, have you ever heard of the All Blue? All Blue? It's a mythical sea. It's where fish from all the blues can be found. Then shouts were heard, as the cooks began to complain about the soup Sanji made. What did you say? Sanji asked with a dark look on his face, which got worse as other chefs began to complain as well. It got really bad when Zeph agreed with the others, causing Sanji to start screaming at the geezer. After Zeph used his hands to strike him, Sanji left with a huff. You all are bad actors, Luffy said as she sat next to Jin. The soup's delicious. Can't argue with you there, Captain. Call me Luffy. Zeph couldn't help but laugh. Of course it is. Sanji's a great chef. Everyone here does. Every chef began to agree with Zeph. But no matter what we say, that kid's too thick-headed to listen. Hey kid, can you take him with you to the Grand Line? Only if he wants to, was her reply. I won't force Sanji ni. Fair enough, Brad. You really are like your mother, Zeph said. But who knows if that hard-headed twerp will agree. She gave him a secretive smile, as she glanced towards the door where she could sense Sanji. I can hear you all, bastards, she heard him say. Suddenly, she caught the scent of metal, cologne and fish. She looked over to see Yosaku stuck in the mouth of a pan shark. Yosaku ni, she cried out after they freed the poor man. What are you doing here? Weren't you chasing after Nami ne? Sorry lil sis, but we couldn't catch up to her, Yosaku said. But we know where she was headed. If it's the island I think it is, then we're gonna need your help. Okay, she said. I don't get why it's so dangerous, but I got it. Let's go. Wait, Sanji said as he walked into the room. Your dream is foolish kid, but so is mine. Is that offer of yours still open? Yup. I'll join your crew. I'll be your chef. Yay? Luffy cheered as she hugged him, causing everyone in the room to chuckle when she knocked him over.